The Eclipse debugger is great for debugging simple programs, but as my programs get more and more complex structures in memory, it can sometimes be difficult to visualize those structures. So I wrote a software class called Trace that uses Java's debugging infrastructure to draw pictures of your program in memory. So let's just take a simple example. On this example, using trace is not particularly better than using the manual debugger, but we'll see as the class progresses more complex examples where it's more useful. So here is my class. I'm going to put two lines in here. One says run, the other says draw. So what I'm going to do is run the program. I'm not going to debug it. I'm just going to run the program and we'll look at the output. So what Trace is going to do here is create a folder on my desktop. So let me just look in the folder and you can see I've got a little picture here. It says I'm invoking a function called main. On line 8, I'm drawing. So you can see on line 8, I've called the draw method. And so this will draw the state of the machine at line 8. Here, what are the two variables that I have? Well, there's args. That's a pointer to an array. That's actually pointing to an empty array, which I'm showing here as an empty blue box. And I is currently 0. As you step through the program, every time we hit draw, we'll draw a new picture. So you can see here, the second time we draw, I is 1, the third time I is 2, and then we'll stop. If we want to draw every step of the execution, we can use trace.drawSteps to do that. This will draw every single step of the execution. So what I'm going to do here is go up and delete that folder. And instead of calling trace draw, let's call trace draw steps. Now I'm going to run the program. This will cause a folder to be created. And now it's going to draw every step of this program after run was called. So see, we start drawing at the point of run, and then we go from there forward. So here we go to line 7. Note that line 7 introduces variable I. So what we're showing here is, just like in the debugger, the state before line 7 executes. So after line 7 executes, we have the variable I. So you see here I is 0. And what we're doing here, when we get to line 9, we'll print out something. Line 10, we're about to increment I. And then boom, when we get back to line 8, we've incremented I. And this is sort of going to keep going like that until we exit the program at line 12. So that's draw steps. With this facility, we can also draw functions. So let's see what functions look like here. I'll just copy this code and paste it in Eclipse. And let me just delete this folder. Go ahead and run the program. And you'll see here, what I've got now is we're going to start our main program at line 6. That's the invocation of trace run. Then on line 7, we're preparing to call function f. Then we call the function. So you can see here f is displayed as a separate red box. So each function call gets its own red box. And you can see the line number for each of those functions. So we're executing main at line 7 and f at line 11. Note that the execution of main is suspended until f finishes. So f is sort of in control. And when it returns, it will return to main. So note the dashed red arrow here is showing the return. So here the argument I is 0, and you can see this function will immediately return back to the main program. Now at line 8, we'll call g. G is a recursive function. So the first time we see that I is less than 3, so we can tell that because here I is 0. Note we're executing line 14. So we'll print out I and then do a recursive call on G where I is one larger. So note that here hello.g has called hello.g. Now I have two invocations of the same function. And this will proceed a third and finally a fourth time. So it's the fourth time when we hit I equal to 3 that this condition is no longer true, and therefore this function will immediately return. So as these functions return, Java will actually, if they all return together, it just collapses them all together because there's nothing interesting happening. So you can see we just go from this state to this state in one fell swoop. All of those functions have returned. If you want to see the execution of a particular method, but not necessarily everything, you can use this draw steps of method. So draw steps of method will show just a single method or whatever method you tell it. So if I call draw steps of method here, I will get, you can see here, if I run this several times, I'll get several folders. So the first one's called hello, then after that they'll be called hello1, hello2, hello3. They're named whatever the class that you're running is called. So here in this one, you can see all I'm showing is the invocation of f. So here we just have f showing. We could also just show g if we wanted, and obviously it would just show g, but we can show, in addition, we can show f and g if we have both of them. Here we'll show f and g. So again, I'll just go up, and this is going to show us f and then g. Note that it's skipping the execution just of main. It's just showing us the execution of the functions that we find interesting. So we'll be using trace to visualize the execution of code in class.